Hello everybody, it's the Worm, and I'm back for some more Raging Loop. Now today, you might be wondering, hey, why are we starting in the menu? Why are we not in the game? And that is because we have a lot to talk about, okay? We're gonna be getting into the nitty-gritty today, so... I'm not sure how long this will take. I may make it a chapter thing, like on YouTube chapters or something like that, but I don't know. In any case, the beginning of this video will be a lot of talking, so if you just are not interested in that and want to get back to the gameplay, I'm sure you can scroll ahead in order to find that. Okay, so what are we talking about? Well, quite a lot, actually. Over the past two videos, there's been a lot of people commenting, and specifically a few people have all raised similar ideas, and that's definitely got my own mind thinking a bit. It's gotten some ideas floating around, got the machinery in there working. So where do I want to start? Let's start with this. This is a minor thing compared to some of the other stuff, but I do think it's very important for how minor it is. I want to point out first that, let's see if I can find the comment. Which one is it? Where is it? Okay, here it is. Okay, first thing I want to address. Unknown Pitfall here has made a very good point. It discovered something very important. So last time, was it last time? Well, in one of the previous two episodes, remember we've been talking about how, well, one thing that we did talk about was the idea that perhaps Haruaki had seen, and this is not just us saying this, Haruaki himself said it. Haruaki may have seen one of the wolves on the first night of the very first route that we did. Remember, he walked out of the outhouse, he got to a little stairway, he looked up and he saw, in fact, we should see it in the album here, in gallery. Here we go. Here's the picture. And he, in this latest route here, he recalled this image that he had seen. And the thinking was, well, maybe this was one of the wolves in that costume. However, crucially, and this is something that both I and Haruaki, I think, forgot. At least Haruaki didn't bring it up. This was on the very first night, okay? And what that means is that this would have been the night that everyone got their guardians, or basically their roles, whether they were human or a wolf. So this should be before any of the wolves got their costumes. So the question that follows is, what or who is this? If Haruaki saw this on the night before anyone should have been wearing a costume. Well, I do have one thought. Now, this is leaning more into the sort of, well, is it leaning into the mundane? The only person or thing that I can think of at the time that did look like this on that specific night was the Okami-sama. That is, if you recall, remember Haruaki and Kaori and Haru were taken near the hanging tree, and supposedly it was a dream, but we saw the three wolf figures from a distance, and one of them spoke to us. So, let's try to put it in, let's say it's a mundane scenario. It could have been three people. They wore the suits first, and they could have, I don't know, dragged us out of our houses or something. and taken us there. So maybe this is in fact one of the Okami-sama that we saw. Now, whether you want to take it supernaturally, as in literally Okami-sama, or mundane theory, it's a human dressing up as Okami-sama. That's kind of the one thought I had there. But I do think it was a very good catch by Unknown Pitfall to remind us that. So basically, that means this should not be any one of us. That is, any one of the participants within Yasumizu. I mean, unless it's some kind of crazy thing where one or more of us are somehow responsible for setting this whole thing in motion. Usually I would suspect the people in Kama Fujiyoshi for that, but, you know. So basically I think it shouldn't be, well, maybe, I think someone also said maybe it could be one of the Bringers of Corruption, but I didn't really get a sense that the Bringers of Corruption were big creatures like this. Like, you know, let me know if this is not your impression. I got the impression that they were, like, scuttling around in the grass, kind of low to the ground, and Haruaki wasn't able to get a good look at them, and they were multiple and, like, you know, wolves, essentially, but actual wolves, not big werewolf-looking things like this. Unless I missed a line or something where he described them as larger, but I don't think this person or entity was one of the Bringers of Corruption. So, speaking of the Bringers, yeah, one of these dudes. Speaking of they kind of look like they're wearing the outfits, don't they? The little, I can't remember the various terminology they used for the parts of the costume. Not skirt, but something like that. What was I gonna say next? Okay. A lot to talk about. What do I want to cover next? Next thing. Okay. There's a couple really big topics here. Let's see if I could find some. Okay, so you know what? Let's talk about the big thing. Let's talk about the big topic that a bunch of people had commented on. So let's see if I could find them all. So Thule Cannell talked about it. Lambda Delta talked about it. Serial talked about it, I believe. Or maybe not. Let me see. We have a new commenter that I've not seen before, who's requested to be called Danzy. They also talked about it here. Anyway, the thing that everyone seems to be wanting to talk about is the whole situation with Chiemi, okay? Chiemi. So, here's the big... Specifically, there's multiple things I want to talk about Chiemi. First of all, the particular thing that people are commenting on seems to be, why does Haruaki not decide to kill anyone else after Chiemi kills herself? That seems to be a big thing here. And I agree that this seems strange, that there's something off here. In fact, I wrote a comment to Lambda Delta in regards to this, so maybe I'll just read my comment, because I do talk about it a bit. Okay. Yeah, I say so. Yeah, Lambda Delta sums it up pretty well. I'll read Lambda Delta's comment. It says, "This part is pretty weird. Chiemi killed herself, right? Technically, the Wolves team didn't kill her, so why is her death counted as a wolf kill? I still don't get convinced by the explanation, though. I know there isn't a rule I know there isn't the rule the wolves have to pick a victim and kill him by their own hand, but Chemi wasn't kind of for suicide. How do I say this? Okay, so basically, Chemi, her death doesn't. Basically, the wolves are not involved with Chemi's death at all. So it's not even like they indirectly killed her. It's all by her. So why does Haruaki then decide not to do anything else? And then I reply to that. I say, definitely agree that something seems off here. You're not the first person to mention this. It seems to me. Okay, so here's my some of my preliminary thoughts here. So, this isn't explaining it. These are just some questions here. So why wouldn't Haruaki at least try to go for another kill to make use of his ability as a looper, i.e., to learn what is allowed and what isn't? So to further explain that a bit, we have to put ourselves in the mind of a kind of cynical looper here. And when you loop a lot, part of what happens as a looper is you begin to basically test the boundaries, to push up against, what is normally acceptable, because you can get away with it, right? So, because death no longer holds power over you. So the question is, why wouldn't Haruaki at least attempt to kill another person that night, just to see, how far he can push the rules, just to see if the corruption does in fact take him in response to that? That seems a bit weird. And then there's a second part to this. Yes. Okay. Also, I guess this is like a part 2 to that. Doesn't he have, this is again reading from my comment, doesn't he have an example where this had occurred and the wolves were fine? And this is the deaths of Mamiya and Haru in the last route. So if we recall, there was indeed a moment where Mamiya died, and yet the wolves killed Haru later anyway. Now, there's already a bunch of strange stuff with Mamiya. Mamiya's death just keeps haunting me in this game. There's some weirdness here with Mamiya in that she was a wolf, but so like does the wolf count as a human? That's the big question there. But I still think it's pretty significant that we've already had a moment where Mamiya died and then the wolves killed anyway. Also, we had that moment where, and this is still unexplained, from the very first route, where although this is probably reaching too far back and I can't remember the context very well. No, I was going to talk about the old man and Mochi dying in the first route, but again, multiple people died that round, presumably without the wolves getting involved there. I think the idea at the time was that they killed each other or something, and yet the wolves didn't get. Yeah, I think I could still use this example. So, 2 people died in one night, but the wolves weren't punished for that. That was Tai and Yasunaga-kun, okay? So 2 people died, but the wolves were not in trouble. They did not get corruption deaths because of that. So why would Haruaki suddenly think that, one of the humans dying at night suddenly mean they're out of a kill, And so there are those 2 points, and then there's another point that's even more weird. Haruaki had no expectation to think that come morning, Chemi's body would look like a corruption death. Now, because remember, part of the reason we're kind of getting past this, I think, is that Chemi's body was torn up after we left, and so everyone thinks, oh, it was a corruption kill. She left the building. But Haruaki didn't have any reason to believe that would be the case. Oh crap, where am I going with this? I've lost my train of thought. I think I got it back. Basically, if her death was a corruption death, they could play it off like that. Like, the wolves didn't get involved, so they're, they could basically maybe prevent the humans from wanting to vote, something like that. Basically, you got an excuse as a wolf now that it was a corruption death. But at the time, when he had no expectation that her death would look like a corruption death, so he basically wouldn't have had an excuse as a wolf. So why not just go for broke at that moment and try to get 2 kills when you could have, That's the weird part. Now there's that whole can of worms, just regarding the Haruaki's response to her death. Let's talk about Chiemi in a bit more of a broader context here. So, in the episode where she died, I talked about, well, maybe she's a looper. That would explain some of her weird behavior. But now I'm thinking that maybe this is not entirely the case. Or maybe she's looping, but looping in a different way. And to sort of illustrate this was in response to Tuli Cannell, I believe, if I could find it. Where is it here? Okay, let's just okay, yeah. Here it is. So Tuli Cannell had a comment, once again, asking why Haruaki couldn't kill again if Chiemi killed herself. But Tuli Cannell said, and I quote, "One reason for Chiemi to kill herself, in addition to what Unknown Pitfall said, though this applies only if she's looping, she might have used this to learn the wolf's identity, as she would anyway just not stay dead. Just that she and Haruaki wouldn't be likely to end up in the same loop anymore." I'm not sure I understand that very last part of that comment, but basically the idea is, well, maybe Chiemi just wanted to learn who the wolves are, so she went out at night, and once she learned who they were, which, that's already a bit weird, because we were all costumed, right? So I'm not sure how she would be able to tell just on sight. Maybe our heights, but that would be pretty vague, especially in the dark and the mist. But in any case, let's assume that's the case, that she just wanted to learn the identities of the wolves, then she could kill herself and then restart, presumably, if she's looping. But quite a lot of that doesn't really, well, I don't know if this is I guess this is somewhat meta knowledge here, so I'll just say what I said in the response to that. So yeah, so here's the issue. We know from, well, where we left off last time, we saw there's going to be additional options for Konzo in the conversation we're having right now, but also there were the fact that there are multiple choices going forward after her death shows me that, well, wouldn't that mean in that case, let me see if I can illustrate this here. So doesn't that mean technically that, like, so where we left off last time, we have this decision with Konzo where we're talking about Haru, but then the option under it is blocked by 2 keys, of all things, 2 keys. That means we're going to be looping back to that situation a few times, right? Or back through that situation a few times. That means that there's going to be multiple loops of this darkness here, where we're going to go by and Chiemi kills herself multiple times. Now, if she were looping, one would think that she'd only kill herself once, because then she'd know the information. She wouldn't have to kill herself again. So now I'm not an expert in looping time travel nonsense, so maybe there's a kind of explanation here. Like the loop Haruaki gets in is somehow, I don't know, how do I explain it? Like locked in, so Chami always kills herself, but I don't know. That doesn't really make sense to me. Yeah. So yeah, basically, I think I know the last couple episodes I was saying I'm a bit more on the side of the Chami Looper theory, but having thought about it a bit more now, I'm a bit more hesitant on that idea. I'm more inclined to believe there's something else going on, I think. And this goes to Danzy was talking about this a bit as well. And so, last episode we were talking about Konzo and the rest seeming to act a bit different. Like, what's his name? Kyo was on the ball with regard to poison, and Konzo's acting differently with us, and people seem more sharper than usual, and that whole situation with Chami. Dancy had decided, or came up with the idea, well, maybe they aren't looping in particular, like we are, Haruaki, but nonetheless, maybe there's some sort of, what would he even say here? Like bleed over, or somehow they're still being affected by the looping, even if they're not directly aware of it. So a big example, and this is one Danzy provided, Chemi in the Wit route, the one we did before Darkness, she cried immediately seeing Haruaki from walking into the dining hall. So the argument goes, even if she's not looping, there's still some ingrained memory, subconscious memory that is occurring. And so basically, even if they're not aware of it, the villagers are slowly gaining more intuition about what's going on, or something like that. Yeah. And I'd say I'm more inclined to believe something like that now than maybe someone else is actually looping with us, because I feel like at this point, if there was another looper, there'd be more hints of it. Well, maybe it's still Chami. I don't know. I feel like there are problems with that. Let's see, what else? What else is there? Let's see if I can find it. I thought there was something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, come on, what was it? There was definitely something else. Oh, yes. Okay, last big thing I want to talk about. And this might explain some of the weirdness going on with Haruaki here. Like with his decision not to kill someone else after Chami's suicide. So I need to keep getting reminded of this by you guys, but it does seem to be the case that Haruaki's memories are not perfect every loop. Now, this has been kind of vague so far. Some stuff it seems he remembers perfectly well. And other times, his memory, he just has a vague idea of what happened. So, it's never been clearly spelled out to us exactly what is it he remembers and what he doesn't. So, I suppose it could be the case that he doesn't perfectly remember what happened, say, with Mamiya and Haru that one night, or with what happened with the wolves and other routes. And maybe that's why he's reticent to try and kill another person. because if he doesn't have a perfect memory, then the normal looper thing of, you know, just doing it to just, you know, spending your lives just to figure out what's real and what's not, what are the rules, it doesn't really apply, because then it you know, if you're not going to be actually gaining the knowledge, what's the point of actually spending your life there? So that doesn't really feel that good of an explanation to me, but it is, you know, his vague memory issues have been brought up before, so it's not like it's happening out of nowhere. But that's kind of the only reason I can imagine why he wouldn't want to at least try to kill another person that night. I don't know. But yeah, so those are some of the issues we've been talking about in the comments. Yeah, I always enjoy hearing or reading what you guys have to say there. Definitely invigorates my own thoughts on this sort of thing. Yeah, let's go back into the game. Okay, so that's done and out of the way. I hope that was somewhat coherent. I just kind of you guys were talking about a lot of stuff, so I wanted to at least address most of it before moving back on, because a lot of it is interesting and important to try and understand what's going on, I think. Okay, so last time, my goodness, what did happen? We woke up. We found out the whole deal with Chiemi, that she was, that it looks like she got, got a corruption death, which, oh, this just reminds me, someone else said this too. Can I find who said this? Or did someone say it? Or did I just infer it? Someone might have said this. If you said this, I apologize. I can't remember which person said it. So this brings into question the fact that Chiemi's corpse got torn up. What happened with Mamiya in the last route? We know it looks like she got a corruption death, but what if that was just the bringers of corruption or whatever going over and, you know, messing with the body before the morning? So maybe she committed suicide too. Maybe she tripped and fell. Maybe, who knows? You know, so Mamiya's death is even more mysterious than it already was. Is basically the point I'm trying to get across. Yeah. Okay. So that happened. Takumi and Kanzo took care of the corpse. Let's see what else. Hashimoto and Mamiya went out on patrol. Haru went with Mochi to go get something. I don't remember what. And eventually we left as well, and we fell down a little cliff, supposedly. I'm not sure where spatially we went. I'm trying. I have a kind of picture of Yasumizu in my head, and I don't know where this little cliff is in it. We walked out of the dining hall, went across the plaza, and then somehow we fell down a cliff. I don't know. But Kanzo helped us up. We may have sprained our ankle, and Kanzo unexpectedly decided to talk strategy with us. And I don't remember some of the last bits of the conversation, but I guess now we're going to talk about Haru's love life, I guess. I can't remember how it led to this specifically, but let's go.
Haru-chan.
The moment I said that, he stopped walking. It made me put more weight over my left leg, making me groan in pain.
Haru ga doushita?
His grip seemed to become unnaturally stronger.
いえ、昨日あれだけ霧に怯えてたのに、今日はらしくないとは思いましたけど。
What's the strategy here, Haruaki? I'm a bit confused.
しょうもない。
そうなんです。
女いうもんは男と子のためならこだわりを捨てる。
For a moment, that sounded like sexism, but then I realized it could be interpreted as a criticism of men, who often clung to their biases no matter what. That aside, analyzing his words made it clear that Haruchan's change was because of a man.
ああ、安永くんですか。はるちゃんは安永くんが好きなんでしょうか。
皆そう言うとる。
Everyone, huh? That's the countryside for you. Love stories had nowhere to hide. Poor Haru-chan.
でも安永くんは千恵美ちゃんが死んでショックなようでした。
若いもんのすいたキロータは面倒なもんよ。いつの時代も変わらん。
He resumed walking. Basically, he was wary of any suspicions directed toward his grandfather. What did I just say? Basically, he was wary of any suspicions directed toward his granddaughter because of some worthless, childish soap opera stuff. I could totally understand. The truth was that she was actually a wolf, and she was acting like that because she was overdoing the plan I'd set up, so the suspicions were completely right. In other words, those suspicions could fade even quicker if someone presented an even simpler story as an alternative. Sorry, Haraki.
実は僕も千恵美ちゃんのことが少し好きになり始めてたんです。霧が出る前ですけど、彼女に今お相手はいるのかって聞いたんですけど、どうやらいると。で、当然外の町の方にいるのかと聞いたら、そこは濁されて。ただ、どうやら相手に二股をかけられてるから別れようかなとか言ってまして。
Huh. What a sudden change.
本当か。
He gripped my arm really hard, and I, grimacing at the pain in my leg, looked straight into his wrinkly face.
おい。
聞いたかどうかなら本当です。ただ、彼女が本当のことを言っていたかは知りませんよ。それに、彼のこととはわかりません。違うかもだし。
After looking at nothing in particular, he turned away from me.
安永くんはいい子だと思いますよ。
He didn't give any sort of response. All right. I'd just sown the seeds of malice. I'm a bit confused. Surely he isn't. He's not suggesting that. I mean, he's making this up, right? About this boyfriend. I don't remember her ever saying that. Maybe she did. If she did say she had a boyfriend that was cheating on her, let me know, because I don't remember that. But is he trying to imply that Yasunaga-kun was the boyfriend and cheated on her? That's kind of the sense I got, but that seems a bit weird to me. Okay. Once I returned to the dining hall, Tai-san took a look at my injury.
じゃから外に出ん方がええって言うたのに。バカね。
すみません。 本当に危ないですね。もうずっとおとなしくしておきます。
それがええわよ。
Tai-san brought a hand towel from the counter and skillfully bandaged my leg. She'd even put on some weird leaves on my skin. Apparently they helped with sprains like this. She then took a wet towel in a plastic bag and applied it to the wound. It was a substitute for ice, and it worked better than you'd think. Despite this being a medical matter, Kinosuke refused to get involved. Orthopedics weren't his specialty, apparently. The empty pride he displayed when saying that he actually calmed me Sorry. Let me get a drink of water. I seem to be tripping up a lot. Okay. The empty pride he displayed when saying that actually calmed me down. It was very like him.
お怪我は胸が痛みますが大事がなくて何よりでした。
すみません。ご心配をおかけして。
ねえ、草雪さん、骨折？
難しい言葉を知ってるね。でもこれは捻挫。
Hi, Mako.
前座？
ねんざ。
ら？
Was I that bad at talking?
痛いの？
うん。すごく痛いよ。
天罰ね。
Punishment? Did I hear that right?
草雪さんに天罰！悪いことしたから。
濡れ衣だ。どうしたんです今日。
すみません。今日はどうしてかずっとこんな調子で。
Huh. She really did seem like she was in a bad mood. Had she seen something? I was worried for a moment, but Mako didn't say anything more. She just continued being sulky. What was her deal? Well, I mean, of course there's a thought in my head I'm sure lots of other people have the thought that Mako is, related to either the looping or one of the gods or something. But I find that a bit weird. I mean, Haruaki hasn't even killed anyone yet. In fact, none of the wolves have killed anyone yet. So what is she referring to? Just lying, maybe? What's the... And he's lied before in previous routes, and she's not said that about him. So what's the deal there? Eventually, everyone returned, and this ended up being nothing major. My injury was actually the biggest event. Some were worried, some picked on me, some scolded me for not being careful. Their reactions were varied, but it didn't look like anyone suspected me because of it. Yasunaga-kun was in a better mood today. When Haru-chan and Mochi brought some foraged goods, he thanked them with a smile. There was a debate about whether we'd actually eat the stuff. Tai-san said something about the corrupt mist, Kinosuke considered the possibility of there being poisoned plants, etc. We chopped it all up, put some sauce on it, and the volunteers, the children Hashimoto-san and the industrious food critic Mamiya-san, ate up. Nothing happened, of course. Because of my injury, no one wanted to go outside anymore. An hour after lunch, Kanzo said that it was time, and we began the feast.
痛むならもっと飲め。
Okay. Let me check something. Oops, wrong thing. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Let's do this. Half grinning in response, I drank more of the divine sake than usual. As far as I knew, though, alcohol wasn't good for you when you were injured. Thus, the feast started.
やっぱりまず知恵みについて考えたい。
Oh,
なんであんなことになった？ヤスナ、考えはあるか？
one final thing to mention, okay? No. Actually, I'll save it for the end. Let's focus on this. We need to focus on this. Kumi-san started by giving out the lead to Yasunaga-kun, who readily accepted it. They probably decided on this during their secret talk. Oh yeah, they had a talk too. He gave several ideas. Chemi could have accidentally wandered outside on some errand. She could have not returned home for some reason. And lastly, she could have been killed by wolves who wanted to make it look like the corruption did it. That was when Takumi-san mentioned that you couldn't stay awake even if you wanted to, and Yoshitsugu-kun vouched for that. With that... Huh. That's if you go to sleep originally, right? If you stay outside and don't go inside. Because remember Yoshitsugu-kun went outside in the very first route and he got corruption killed, right? I mean, you'd think he was awake for that. So it should be you couldn't stay awake if you actually went to sleep at first. If you're up and about the whole time, then okay. I think that's what that means. Okay, with that, everyone agreed that it was unlikely that she'd accidentally gone outside. Their talk was similar to the one we'd had when talking about Mamiya-san's death last time. However, unlike this time, it had been a given that Mamiya-san had returned to her room once, so we'd reached the conclusion that she, a person who didn't end up sleeping, was a wolf. The idea that Chiemi didn't return back home to begin with had me forming a certain theory. According to Chiemi from the first loop, you could be outside until 8 in the evening. Yesterday, I'd woken up about 10 p.m., meaning that anyone in their rooms between 8 and 10 p.m. would go to sleep. Or rather, be forced into sleep. That was when the wolves would be woken up, get in the wolf outfit they were given during the night, and do their deeds. From what I could tell, the humans would stay asleep. That was why they were always killed without putting up a fight. After that, the wolves would return to their homes and be forced to sleep again. Then the wolf outfit would be picked up, and they would wake up the following morning. The Feast of the Yomi Purge wouldn't work without the sleep function. However, I knew for a fact that people could die just by being outside their rooms. The first time it happened to Mami-san and Hashimoto-san, who'd wanted to spend the night in their van. But Yoshitsugu-kun was torn apart because of his own recklessness. Yep. Last time, if you excluded Mami-san, a wolf, Yoshitsugu-kun suggested going outside right after everyone went to bed. The first time, he'd probably gone outside long before everyone was forced to sleep. Basically, if you were in a room at a certain time, you were forced to go to sleep. Yep, okay. Glad he confirmed it after I asked the question. That was probably the true meaning behind the shelter taboo. It was just a prerequisite for the main factor in controlling the feast, dreaming, or, in other words, sleeping. That was why those who didn't shelter would be eliminated by the bringers of corruption. Looking at it that way, I felt I could see the cunning, logical truth behind Great Lord Shinai. Anyway, the main matter right now was Chiemi. I had no idea how she could survive outside until she committed suicide, but I would just assume she did. I also didn't know if she was waiting for the wolves or just happened to encounter us when we went to the dorm. However, it was clear that she'd been outside the whole time. Yasunaga-kun also believed that, and said so to everyone else. His own idea was that it was actually a murder made to look like a rule violation, was dismissed because Chami's futon wasn't even spread out in her room. That meant she hadn't even intended to dream last night.
つまりやっすんは理由はよくわかんないけど、ちえねえが死んだのは事故みたいなもんで、狼は誰も殺してないってことを言いたいのかな?
Okay, maybe we'll get... Okay, if Haruaki has a reason... This is something we've been... that the whole talk at the beginning was about, right? It didn't really come across at the time, but maybe he had a strategy here. Maybe Haruaki's strategy was for the humans to get to this point themselves. And maybe his whole strategy is caution to the extreme, right? Because remember, he wants to not just win, he needs to win and survive. So maybe the idea is, because Chemi killed herself and someone died that night, he wanted to stop the wolves from killing any more. But does that work? Because again, I said this before, he had no reason to expect she was going to look like a corruption kill. Right? That's the hang-up I get here. Also, they were totally going to kill someone that night, right? They were trying to kill Yasunaga-kun, so... That kind of goes against the caution idea. I don't know.
Ah.
After Yasunaga-kun explained his position, Mochi interjected. He was a passive participant, but he was really good at it. Most of his few words were on the mark. He was also the monkey, so no one had to worry about him trying to mislead people.
つまり狼はやっぱり殺すのをためらったってわけか。
僕はそう思う。
That misinterpretation was actually good for us. Though we didn't plan for it, we got rid of a human, and there wouldn't be a hanging today as retaliation. Okay. So that does seem to be... Well, not his plan, but that's what he's thinking now. Yeah. At least a part of me hoped so. Yeah, too early to say that for sure.
わしにはそうは思えん。
Kanzo-san argued against it, of course.
どうしてです？
狼にとって都合が良すぎる。
Sharp.
その気分はわかります。が、そういうためには、知恵姉がどうしてあなたかわからないと。
逆じゃ。お前が言え、ヤス。
え？
夜に人が死んどる。普通は狼の仕業じゃ。そうでないなら、はっきりと示さんか。
でもあれは汚れだと、タイバーや狼じじいも言ってたじゃないですか。
あたしはそう思ったがね。でも難しいことは。
狼が来る。
こんなもんで確証になるか。
じゃあ、知恵姉が布団を敷いてなかったのはどう説明するんですか？
大したことじゃねえ。
It sounds like they didn't see any blood on the stairs. Just want to point that out.
大したことですよ。
てめえ、ヤス、ちょっと黙れ。
Kanzo-san's words were full of irritation, if not anger. It brought about a change in everyone's expressions. So this is supposedly the anger that Haruaki caused. I was the only one who could see this rationally. After all, I was the one who caused this, yep. I'd presented him with an unproven personal matter between me and a deceased girl, maliciously giving him several ways to view it. One of them led to the conclusion that Yasunaga was a dirty cheater who played both Chami and Haru-chan. I had led Kanzo-san to that convenient idea without putting myself at any risk. I wasn't expecting us to avoid today's lynching to begin with. Thus, I would instead gain their trust by just leading them to the truth.
もう一つ可能性がありま
Wow,
す。
is he really gonna try to say she committed suicide? Well, he just said he was, but I mean, the more surprising aspect of that is he going to try and make Yasunaga responsible for that? My goodness.
ちえみちゃんが自殺をした可能性です。
The idea shocked everyone, but it was actually easy to explain. It was true, after all. Someone who'd commit suicide wouldn't prepare their futon, and since the suicide was enough bloodshed for the night, the wolves didn't kill anyone else. Again, this is a bit weird reasoning here for this. It was an answer that led people to combine the idea that the wolves didn't kill but planned to. Why would you want them to come to that idea?
ならどうして遺体があんなにひどいことになっていたんですか。あんな自殺方法があるとでも。
What? Okay.
自殺死体を狼が見つけた後、特に何もせずに放置した。それを山の獣が荒らしたとすればどうかな。
そんなもんこの辺りの山にいるか、おやっさん。
He wanted to prove that the wolves were out for blood, but his knowledge as a hunter denied the possibility of there being such beasts here. So, I helped him out.
こんなこと考えたくはないんですが、化け物、ええ、あるいは神とかそういう考えてもみてください。汚れを与える存在は実在するんです。初日に犬がいっぱい殺されていた。あれは事実です。
Sorry for skipping your line, Haruaki.
あれをやる存在が夜そこら中をうろついてるとすれば、死体を見つけて同じように破壊する可能性はある。それは読み人とかムジナとか本物の世物狼とかそういうものかもしれません。
汚れをもたらすのは確かにそういうものかもしれません。
おお、恐ろしい。
久石さん、いたずらに不安を煽らないでくださいよ。
いや、そのつもりはないんだ。ただ何か未知の脅威があるのは確かで、化け物じゃなくても注意すべきだし。
You know what I'm waiting for? I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for him to speak up. He's gonna speak up eventually, and he's gonna destroy us. That's my expectation right now.
死体が損壊した理由にだってなり得る。それは注意すべきじゃないか。
それはそうですが。
待てって、仮に千恵美が自殺だったとして、それで狼が殺す気だったかってのもわからねえだろ。
I'm confused why Haruaki wants to lead them to that conclusion, because that would seem to. I guess the idea is he could lead them to that conclusion that the wolves wanted to kill, because he doesn't think he can avoid it anyway. That they're going to want to hang someone eventually anyway, and so the idea is he's going to try and lead the conversation and gain their trust so he can direct who they're hanging or something. Is that what he's trying to go for here?
それに千恵美は自殺するような玉じゃねえと俺は思うぜ。
Well, she did it, buddy. My goodness.
そうだ、知恵姉は自殺なんてしませんよ。
まあまあ、皆さん落ち着いてください。
So, he joined in. How would he handle this?
僕の意見を言ってもいいでしょうか。
どうぞ。
もちろんだ。
うん。
僕こんな図体ですが、一時は戦地でカメラマンやってましてね。いくらか悲惨な現場も見たんですが。
He's covered wars, you know.
マジかよ。
うん。で、専門家じゃないから何とも言えないんですが、彼女の遺体、頭部だけ妙に散乱してて、壁の上の方まで飛び散ってるみたいなんですよ。その写真も撮ってあります。銃創っぽく見えるんですよね。大口径の銃の至近弾。
I mean, he's not wrong. Sharp. A few people looked at Gonzo-san. It was a fitting reaction considering he had a gun, and he grunted in response.
ああ、いえ、牧島さんがどうってことじゃないと思いますよ。
どういうこと？
上に吹き飛ぶ状況ってやっぱり口に加えて撃ったのかなって。大きな銃ならだいぶやりにくいと思いますが、誰かが殺すなら水平か、あるいは上から下に撃つ方がありそうですから。となるとやはり久石君が言うように自殺なんじゃないかと。彼女って銃を持ってたんです。
いや、
聞いちゃいねえな。
わしも聞いてはいねえが、資料の免状は取ったと言うとった。
マジか。それじゃあ散弾銃なら持てたはずだな。
地位は筋が良かった。量やらすなら地位だと思っとった。
Kanzo-san's tone grew lower as he displayed an unexpectedly high opinion of her. The story that she was being cheated must have hit harder than I thought. Shemi really did have a place here. She must have gotten a license because she thought so herself. That could only mean that the gloomy talk from last time.
だってここには私の居場所なんてないもの。
Was just nonsense from a wolf.
いや待て、おかしい。それならなぜ銃が残ってねえんだ。ちえみの部屋にも銃弾なんてなかったぞ。
I was curious about why there was no gun too, but there were no bullets either, or shells. They were with the rest of her stuff last time. Did they mess up while searching or something?
部屋には鍵はかかってなかったから誰でも入れたわけですよね。
そりゃそうだが、
一番危惧すべきは狼が銃と弾丸を持ち帰ったということだと思うんです。
That was when Mamiya-san took over.
実在が不確かな銃を必要以上に恐れるのもどうかとは思うんですが、それでもこの後各自の部屋をざっとでも見て回る必要があると思います。
それで見つかるように隠すかは怪しいけど、どう思います？
探す姿勢を見せることが大事です。
やろ
う。構わね
え。待ちたまえ。うちをそんな理由で荒らされるのは少々困る。古い猟銃が出てきてもおかしくないし。
後ろ暗いところがあるんですか？
Ooh. Haru doesn't waste any time. She pounces.
でもまあ確かにおっちゃんは銃とか持って帰らなさそう。そもそも持ってそうだし、ヘタレだし。
Dang it, Mochi.
しかも貴様は。しかし、ああそうだ。正直死体からそんなものをもぎ取るなど 考えただけで吐き気を催すね。
臆病長者が死体が怖えんだろ。それで医者もできねえって聞いたぜ。
違う、私は。
黙りなさい、義継。野里さん、どうかご無礼をお許しください。
So, he really was afraid of corpses. Man, the guy sure was made it. Sorry. Man, the guy sure was hard to make use of. Still, there was no reason for us to be afraid here. After all, we weren't the ones who took the gun. I could only assume that it was Great Lord Shinai again. Thanks to Hashimoto-san, just about everyone now agreed that Chiemi had killed herself with a gun. Proof was a very important thing. The people of Yasumizu really had to realize that, by cleaning up the corpses right away, they made it harder to find out the truth. Even Yasunaga-kun accepted that Chiemi had committed suicide. He was now muttering something like, "Chiene, why?" Kanzo-san looked at him with extremely intense eyes. If you connected the story from before with the suicide, you could assume that it was the result of the love triangle drama. After all, she'd committed suicide in front of Yasunaga-kun's room. With that settled, Takumi-san spoke up again.
で、結局今日はどうするんだ。くくるのかくくらねえのか。
After a moment of silence,
狼が殺したんじゃない。だから約束通り処刑はしないべきだ。
Okay, we have an argument on the table. Who will oppose?
死人が出たらくくるのが約束じゃ。
Kanzo has spoken up.
狼が殺したんじゃない。
よろしいですか。
なんだ植松。
私には芹沢様が雲の精神を発揮されたのではないかと思えてならないのです。
That's an interesting thing to say.
あ？なんだそりゃ。
汚れをその身に引き取る雲の精神によって他の皆々様を守られたのです。聡明で勇敢な芹沢様ならばそのような行動に出られるのではないか、そう思えてならない。
詳しく教えてください。
つまり昨晩自ら進んで血を流し他の加護者の皆様を守られたということならば、もちろん芹沢様は狼の来訪を目の当たりにして自決をなさったのではないでしょうか。
ちいちゃん、あの子は乱暴じゃったが確かにそういうまっすぐな優しい子でもあったんよ。
そういうんじゃねえ。知恵ねえは本物の肝っ玉を持ってただけだ。
じゃあやっぱり狼は殺す気で近づいてたってことなの？考えすぎじゃない？
ただな、確かに知恵姉が自殺する理由なんて他に考えられないんだよね。
悩みがありゃその相手を撃つ方が知恵ねえらしいってんだよ。あるね。そしていつも学校で僕らを体を張って守ってくれたのも知恵ねえだ。
知恵ねえ、
どうするんです？処刑をする方向に話が進んでますよ。
最低限するかどうか票を取ってもらいたいな。
橋本さん、
僕も君も生き残らないとならない。脅威の排除が必要ならやむを得ないのかもしれない。
でも
もしそういう理由なら、きっと芹沢さんはカゴ者じゃなかったろう。蛇のカゴ者は生きてて情報をつかんだことになる。
Ooh. Okay. This might be it. Is Haruaki going to try and speak up now and assume the role?
加えて皆さんが狼の打倒のために覚悟と団結をできるなら、昨日とはだいぶ状況が違うことになる。
If he's gonna do it, he has to do it soon. He can't wait till someone else claims it.
まあ僕も良心に従って殺人はしない方に一票入れるけどね。結果には従うよ。
よし、挙手でいいか。
うん。
今日くくるものを投票で選ぶことに賛成の者は挙手しろ。
The old wolf guy, Yamawaki-san, Kanzu-san, Kinosuke Takumi-san, Rokaku-san, Mochi, Yoshitsugu-kun, and I raised our hands. The only ones who didn't were Kaori-san, Yasunaga-kun, Haru-chan, Meiko, and the Journos.
もっち。
ごめんやっすん。でもなんか知恵姉が敵撃てって言ってる気がしてさ。
そうなのかな。本当にそうなら夢ででも出てきてくれればいいのに。
そうだね。
9対6じゃ。ククルモン選べ。
仕方ないなあ。その場合一人選んだらそのまま処刑をしてすぐに解散なんですか？
どうなんだおやっさん。
くくったら宴はしまいよ。
じゃあその前に大事なことを聞いておきたいんですが、さっき言った蛇のことで、もし蛇が今日狼を見つけてるなら名乗り出てもらっていいのではないかと。
そうですね。誰をくくるか選べるし、その後雲に守ってもらうこともできる。
複数出てきたら嫌ですね。
出てくるよ複数。昨日織部安永君が指摘した通り、一人目が名乗り出ればね。
Yeah. If the real one came out now, I would have to play the fake. But the real one wouldn't come out just yet.
狼を見つけた蛇はいないか？
Why does he think that?
いねえみてえだぜ。
じゃあ昨日調べたのは人だったってわけだ。
ふむふむ。ちなみに今日の夜優先的に調べられたいって人はいます？
Say what? For a moment, I almost ignored that nonchalant question. But a second later, I almost stopped breathing. This was an attack. I had no idea why I thought that. But this was a deadly attack. What was I supposed to do about it? What was the right choice? Okay, hold the phone. Does this mean... I see. Now, does anyone here want to be investigated before anyone else? Now, Hashimoto is the monkey. Does this mean he knows who the snake is and is asking on their behalf? Huh. Okay, well, I've gone over my limit, actually, so we'll leave it on here. Definitely an interesting feast going on right now. I need to comb through it again and really think about a few of these things here. In any case, I've been the Warm, this has been Raging Loop, and I'm really enjoying it. I've always enjoyed it, and this last route so far, Darkness, has been just filled to the brim with interesting ideas, interesting choices. So keep up the conversation, I guess, because I really enjoy it when I get to hear your thoughts too. So see you next time.